In a faraway galaxy, on the planet Zilur, lived a young alien child named Lyra. Lyra was a small being, with big, sparkling eyes that looked like shiny blue marbles. She had soft, green skin that glimmered under the light of her planet's two suns. Lyra was curious about everything in her world. She loved to explore the lush forests around her home, filled with colorful plants and gentle creatures that danced through the trees. Lyra lived in a village called Eldur, a peaceful place where families lived in harmony, sharing stories under the stars. Her best friend was a boy named Rin, who always had a smile on his face. They often spent the afternoons playing hide and seek among the tall trees or watching the bright stars twinkle in the night sky. Lyra dreamed of becoming a star voyager, traveling from one star to another, discovering new worlds. One day, as Lyra and Rin explored the outskirts of Eldur, they heard a strange rumble echoing through the valley. Lyra's heart raced with excitement and fear. "What was that?" she asked, looking up at Rin. "I don't know, but let's find out," Rin replied, his eyes wide with curiosity. They ran towards the sound, their little hearts beating fast. When they reached the edge of the forest, they saw a sight that made them stop in their tracks. Above them was a dark ship, unlike anything they had ever seen. It hovered silently, casting a shadow over the ground. Suddenly, there was a bright flash, and a beam of light shot down from the ship, hitting the ground just a few meters away. "What is happening?" Lyra whispered, tugging at Rin's arm. Before they could move, they were surrounded by strange creatures. They were tall, with sharp features and bright red eyes. They spoke in a harsh language that filled the air with tension. Lyra and Rin looked at each other in fear. Suddenly, one of the creatures pointed at Lyra and Rin. "Come with us," it commanded in a voice that sounded like thunder. Lyra felt her heart sink. She did not want to go with them, but they had no choice. The creatures grabbed them and pulled them towards the ship. Inside, it was dark and cold. Lyra shivered as she looked around. She saw other alien children, their eyes filled with fear much like hers. Days turned into weeks as they traveled through space. Lyra learned that the creatures were from a war-torn planet, a place filled with anger and chaos. They had come to Zilur seeking soldiers for their army. Lyra and the other children were considered lucky if they were chosen to fight. But Lyra did not want to fight, she wanted to go home and see her family. One evening, as they sat together in the dimly lit room, Lyra spoke to the other children, "We should try to escape. We can't let them make us fight." Hope sparked in the eyes of a small girl named Tessa. "But how can we escape?" she asked, her voice trembling. "We will find a way," Lyra said firmly. "We must be brave." The next day, Lyra and her friends gathered information about the ship. They watched when the guards changed shifts and noticed a tiny window that led to the outside. It was their only chance. Lyra took a deep breath, gathering her courage. On a night when the guards were busy celebrating, Lyra led the children towards the small window. They climbed up, one by one, until all of them squeezed through. Lyra's heart raced with hope. They were free. They floated through space, holding onto each other tightly. The stars twinkled around them, and they felt a sense of freedom they had never experienced before. But soon, they realized they were lost. They had no idea where to go. "Which way is home?" Rin asked, despair creeping into his voice. Lyra looked around, trying to focus on the stars. "We follow the brightest star. It will lead us to Zilur," she said, remembering the stories of old that her grandmother used to tell her. They began moving towards the brightest star, feeling a little bit of hope return to their hearts. The journey was long and tiring, and many nights they felt the weight of worry. Would they find their way home? Then, one day, as they glided through the darkness, they saw the familiar colors of Zilur shining in the distance. Lyra screamed with joy, "Look! We are almost there." As they flew closer, they spotted the swirling clouds and green landscapes of their home. Lyra felt a wave of emotions crash over her. Relief, joy, and love. Just as they were about to touch down, they heard a loud buzzing sound behind them. The dark ship was following them, and once again, they were in danger. Run! Quickly! Lyra shouted as they landed in the grassy fields of Eldur. But the guards were too fast, and they grabbed Rin and Lyra once more. In that moment of fear, Lyra realized her purpose. She would have to fight, not for the war, but for her home. Summoning all her courage, she shouted, "Release us! We fight for our home, not for yours." The guards paused, confused by her words. Lyra took a step forward and declared, "We will not be your soldiers. We are children of Zilur, and we want peace." The words hung in the air, and for the first time, the guards hesitated. Lyra saw doubt flickering in their eyes. She pushed forward, the other children standing beside her, sharing a flicker of bravery. After a long moment, one of the guards lowered its weapon. You are brave. Children deserve to be free," it said slowly. "Maybe it is time we stop fighting." With that, the guards retreated, leaving Lyra and her friends standing together in the bright glow of their home. They had escaped the darkness of war and were now free to explore the stars above, just as Lyra had always dreamed. They looked up at the sky, and Lyra whispered softly, "The stars will always shine for us." The last cry of the stars. The planet Xylos was a jewel, a swirling blue and green marble in the vast darkness. Its twin moons, Lyra and Vega, cast a shimmering light on its lush forests and crystalline oceans. But peace on Xylos was shattered. The Kryll, a race of reptilian warriors from a distant galaxy, had arrived. Their ships, like jagged teeth against the starry sky, blotted out the sun. On a small farm nestled in the Xyloshian countryside, lived Illyra and her parents. Illyra was a child of 10, with eyes like the summer sky and hair like spun moonlight. Her world was simple, tending to the glowing, bioluminescent plants that provided Xylos with light and food, playing with her pet, a furry creature called a fluff ball, and watching the stars with her father, a renowned astronomer. The war came swiftly and brutally. The Kryll, with their advanced weaponry, conquered Xylos with terrifying speed. Illyra's father, Orion, who had predicted the Kryll's arrival through his astronomical observations, had warned the Xyloshian Council, but they dismissed his fears. Now, their homes were burning, and the sky rained fire. Illyra and her parents were forced to flee, joining a long line of refugees heading towards the safety of the Crystal Caves, a legendary network of caverns said to be impenetrable. The journey was perilous. The Kryll's relentless pursuit, the scarcity of food and water, and the constant fear threatened to break them. One night, while hiding in a darkened forest, Illyra's mother, Lyra, fell ill. The Kryll's weapons had polluted the air, making even the purest water toxic. Her cough grew increasingly violent, a rattling sound against the night silence. Orion tried to soothe her, his eyes filled with despair. "We need to reach the caves," he whispered, holding Lyra close. "We have to keep going for Illyra." Lyra, weak but resolute, smiled weakly at her daughter. "Illyra, my little star," she murmured, her voice raspy. "Always remember the beauty of Xylos, and never forget the stars." With a final, labored breath, Lyra closed her eyes, leaving Illyra alone with her father's silent grief. The loss of her mother intensified Illyra's fear, but it also ignited a fierce determination within her. She would survive. She had to. Her father needed her, and she clung to the memory of her mother's words, the beauty of Xylos, and the comforting light of the stars, a reminder of their home. Days turned into weeks as they continued their desperate flight. They found companions along the way, other survivors who shared their fear and their hope. Jax, a grizzled old warrior, joined them, his knowledge of the hidden paths and the terrain proving invaluable. Zara, a young healer, tended their wounds and provided what little medicine they had. The crystal caves were closer now, but the Kryll were relentless, their pursuit never faltering. One evening, while crossing a treacherous ravine, Jax was wounded, his leg badly injured. The Kryll were fast approaching. Orion, using his astronomical knowledge, discovered a secret passage, a hidden route through the caves that avoided the Kryll's patrols. It was a risky gamble. The passage was narrow, dark, and treacherous, full of jagged rocks and deep pits. But it was their only hope. Orion, carrying the injured Jax, and Illyra, followed Zara, who was leading the way with a bioluminescent plant used as a torch. The journey through the caves was harrowing. They crawled through tight spaces, navigating treacherous tunnels, their hearts pounding with each footstep. They encountered strange creatures, some friendly, some hostile, but they persevered, driven by the hope of survival and the memory of Lyra's last words. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they emerged into the vast expanse of the Crystal Cave's central chamber. A breathtaking sight greeted them, massive crystals, radiating a soft, ethereal glow, illuminating the immense space. They were safe, at least for now. As they settled, Illyra looked up at the crystals, their light echoing the memory of the stars. She had lost her mother, her home, but she had found safety and companionship. In the heart of the caves, surrounded by the glistening crystals, Illyra found a new kind of peace. It wasn't the peace of Xylos's sunny skies, but it was a peace born of resilience, of courage in the face of overwhelming odds. The war continued, but in the crystal caverns, a new hope flickered, a testament to the enduring spirit of Xylos, and a promise of a future under the light of new stars, maybe far away, but surely still bright. The last cry of the stars, the dying breath of Xylos's lost freedom, had been swallowed by the echoing silence of the caves, but it had not been extinguished. It lived on in Illyra's heart, a beacon guiding her towards an uncertain, but hopeful tomorrow. The war was far from over, but the fight for survival had just begun.